As I've stated, I've been a Chargers fan since the 2006 season, actually prior to 2006 season. I have said many times that I saw the LaDainian Tomlinson powder blue jersey and I said, that's going to be my team. Even though I lived on the East Coast, I lived in New Jersey, I decided I wanted to follow the San Diego Chargers at the time. And ironically enough, I still own that powder blue LT jersey back from 2006, 2007, and it still fits me because I have yet to grow since that time frame. I want to start this new segment where I just go through some important parts of Chargers history that I was alive for. I don't want to go back in time because I never experienced it. Like the 1994 Super Bowl, I was one, so I never experienced that. But, some of the things that have happened since I have been a fan, I wanted to start a series and just talk about them and talk about talk about an oral history of them and have them on the show as something that you can learn from, that it's entertaining. So the first piece out of the gate is going to be LT's 2006 MVP season. I remember that year, the Chargers were always on the East Coast because of how good the team was. The team was 14-2 that year, potentially could have made a Super Bowl run, and lost to the Patriots in the divisional round. But that season was so magical. I remember watching LT's record-breaking touchdown run on TV. They had it on the East Coast, like I said. So we're going to go through in some of these episodes just an oral history of these events in Chargers history that have been a part of my lifetime and my fandom. And I think it's appropriate to talk about my favorite athlete of all time, LaDainian Tomlinson, as the first episode and talk about his MVP campaign in 2006. So with that being said, let's go through that historical and magical season for LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006 and the San Diego Chargers. Some seasons are great, some seasons are legendary, and for one player, become an absolute force of nature. In 2006, the NFL just didn't witness a great running back at the peak of his powers. It witnessed a storm. A player so dominant, so completely inevitable, that he rewrote the league's record books. He was already known as one of the most complete backs in the NFL, but in 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson became something more. He became a legend. And to understand the history he made, you first have to understand the frustration that created him. The 2005 season was supposed to be the year for the San Diego Chargers. They had the talent, the coaching, and a superstar running back in LaDainian Tomlinson, who was coming off a monster year with nearly 1,500 rushing yards and 20 total touchdowns. But the season fizzled into disappointment. A 9-7 record meant they missed the playoffs, left to watch the postseason from home, wondering what went wrong. For a competitor like LT, a man who had already proven he was one of the game's elite, falling short wasn't just a setback. It was fuel. After one of the most frustrating ends to a season imaginable, LaDainian Tomlinson came back in 2006 with one thing on his mind: redemption. This is a story of how he put the San Diego Chargers on his back and waged war on the NFL record books. The 2006 season didn't begin with a blaze of glory for the Chargers. It was more of a steady burn. The team started the year with a solid 2-1 record through the first month. Tomlinson himself had a productive, if not explosive, start, scoring 3 touchdowns in those first 3 games. But for a team loaded with talent and sky-high expectations, just being good wasn't enough. Whispers started to creep in. Was this team, led by old-school coach Marty Schottenheimer, ever going to reach its potential? Meanwhile, off the field, a quiet storm was brewing between Schottenheimer and general manager A.J. Smith. The two had a relationship that was famously broken, barely speaking to one another. That dysfunction created a constant tension that hung over the entire organization. But on the field, the players, led by their quiet superstar, did their best to block out the noise. They had a job to do. Then came Week 5. Facing the defending Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers, the Chargers battled their way to a tough 23-13 victory. It wasn't a huge statistical day for LT, who was held to just 36 yards rushing, but it was a statement win. It was a turning point. From that moment on, something clicked. The steady burn was about to become an absolute inferno. What came next was one of the most dominant stretches of football a single player has ever produced. It was like Tomlinson simply decided he wasn't going to let his team lose anymore. He started ripping off huge runs, finding holes that didn't seem to exist, and treating the end zone like his own personal property. The insanity began in Week 6, when he hung 4 touchdowns on the 49ers. That game kicked off a new NFL record, 8 consecutive games of multiple touchdowns. he torched the St. Louis Rams for 183 rushing yards and 3 total touchdowns. He shredded the Cincinnati Bengals defense for 4 rushing touchdowns. Against the division rival Denver Broncos on the road, he put up another 3 rushing scores and took a screen pass 51 yards to the house for a 4th. Teams knew exactly what was coming. They'd stack the box with 8, sometimes 9 defenders, practically begging quarterback Phillip Rivers to throw the ball. And it didn't matter. They still couldn't stop him. Schottenheimer's Marty Ball philosophy, a physical, ground-and-pound style of offense, was the perfect system for LT's talent. He was the engine, and the entire offense was built around his punishing runs. The offensive line mauled defenders. Fullback Lorenzo Neal was a human battering ram, and LT was the artist, painting a new masterpiece of power, speed, and vision every single week. As the wins piled up, so did the records. At first, it was about chasing down Shaun Alexander's record of 28 total touchdowns, which had been set just 1 year earlier. But soon, it became about something even bigger, a scoring record that stood 46 years. On December 10th, 2006, at home against the Broncos, history was made. With his second touchdown of the day, a short plunge into the end zone, LT broke the single-season touchdown record. His teammates hoisted him onto their shoulders as the San Diego crowd went wild. LaDainian Tomlinson had scored 29 touchdowns in a season, the most in NFL history. He wasn't done either. He scored a 3rd time in that game just for good measure. Just 1 week later against the Kansas City Chiefs, another historic milestone fell. He officially broke Paul Hormung's long-standing record for most points scored in a single season, a mark that had been untouchable since 1960. In that same game, he ripped off a spectacular 85-yard touchdown run, part of a 199-yard day that helped him officially pass the Chiefs' Larry Johnson for the league's rushing title. He finished the year with a stat line that looks like something you'd create in Madden. 1,815 rushing yards, 508 receiving yards, and 2 numbers that defined his greatness: 28 rushing touchdowns and 31 total touchdowns. Both were new NFL single-season records. He had scored 186 points by himself. The San Diego Chargers, once a good team trying to find their gear, finished with a league-best 14-2 record, winning their final 10 games. LaDainian Tomlinson was, of course, the unanimous MVP. Through it all, LT remained famously humble. He constantly deflected praise, always giving his credit to his offensive line, his fullback, and his coaches. He saw the records not as personal achievements, but as the natural result of team success. He never set out to break them. His only goal was to win. In his relentless pursuit of victory, he found immortality. The 2006 Chargers rolled into the playoffs as the AFC's #1 seed and the heavy Super Bowl favorite. They were hosting the New England Patriots, and it felt like destiny. This was it, the culmination of the redemption tour, the payoff for a season of historic dominance. But playoff football is a cruel, cruel game. Despite LT having a great day, running for 123 yards and scoring 2 touchdowns, the game was a brutal, mistake-filled mess. The defining moment came late in the 4th quarter. With the Chargers leading 21-13, Tom Brady threw what should have been a game-sealing interception to Charger safety Marlon McCree. But instead of just going down and ending the game, McCree tried to run with the ball. In a legendary heads-up play, Patriots receiver Troy Brown stripped it right out of his hands, and New England recovered. The Patriots had new life. They marched down the field, scored a touchdown, converted a 2-point conversion to tie it up, and eventually kicked the go-ahead field goal with just over a minute left. A last-second 54-yard field goal attempt by the Chargers fell short. And just like that, the dream season was over. The 14-2 record, MVP season, the shattered records, it all ended in a shocking 24-21 home playoff loss. In the aftermath, the dysfunction that had been simmering all year finally boiled over. Less than a month after that devastating loss, head coach Marty Schottenheimer was fired, with team president Dean Spanos citing an untenable situation between his coach and GM. Firing a coach after a 14-2 season was unheard of. LaDainian Tomlinson would later call Schottenheimer a scapegoat, a casualty of a power struggle that the players had no control over. The story of LaDainian Tomlinson's 2006 season is one of breathtaking brilliance and absolute heartbreak. It's a testament to how a single player can, through sheer will and unmatched talent, elevate an entire team to the highest level. For 16 games, LT wasn't just the best player in the league. He was an unstoppable force who delivered one of the most dominant campaigns the sport has ever and will ever see. While the story didn't end with a Super Bowl parade, the lack of a ring doesn't diminish the legend of that season. It was a masterpiece of individual greatness, a year-long highlight reel of a player at an absolute peak of his craft. He came looking for redemption after a disappointing 2005, and in the process, he reached a level of performance that etched his name into the NFL record books forever. The ultimate prize remained just out of reach, but the journey was unforgettable. And the story of 2006 will always be, first and foremost, the story of LT. So Charger fans, let me know what you think is the most unbreakable record from LT's 2006 historical season. Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this look back on LT's famous season, we'll be putting out a ton more of these videos to talk about different parts of Chargers history during my time as a fan of the Bolts. So if you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. You can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcast. However, these episodes where I go through an oral history of different pieces of Chargers history will only be on YouTube. So be sure that you're subscribed and you have that notification button turned on for the Electric Edge Podcast. Let me know your thoughts about LT's historic season and what part of his unbreakable record will never be broken in the NFL. Thank you for tuning in to my newest segment of the Electric Edge Podcast. And as always, Charger fans, go Chargers and bolt up.